Hey everyone, thanks for joining today. My name is Eric Speck. I'm the VP of Ethics and Support at RPH Ally. This is the Peer Support Show, and today I'm going to go over chapter 4 of my pharmacy journey, which was an ugly one, right, guys? So if you tune into the last episode, you'll remember that I had just got terminated from my job at an independent pharmacy because I showed up clearly under the influence, and they've been having some suspicion that something was going on, and I was likely diverting narcotics from their pharmacy. So now I have no job, no access to medications, and I'm dependent on prescription medications, opiates to be specific, to get through my day and to function. So now I'm in some real deep crap. I got to figure out what to do, and I'm going to talk about that right after this. All right. So what do you do when you are chemically dependent on opiates? Guys, I was taking about 50 Norco-10 a day, or the equivalent of that with Dilaudid or Oxy, any combination. I wasn't really too picky. And I would take about 10 to 15 in the morning, just to get going, like with my breakfast, literally like 10 or 15 Norcos, like just to be able to kind of get that loading dose so I could start doing whatever I needed to do for that particular day. And guys, the opiate addiction is a terrible thing. This is the first time in my life where I've never been able to conquer a challenge, no matter what it was, whether it was in academics, whether it was in athletics, any hobbies I had, whatever I set my mind to, I could achieve it. Now, before this event happened, I had tried to quit multiple times. I wanted to stop using. I tried tapering down, and I was unsuccessful. I mean, the power of addiction is so strong. What happens, the best way I like to describe it, it's really like your survival instincts kick in. The same way where if you were struggling for oxygen and somebody was like holding you underwater, you would do whatever you possibly could in your power to get that oxygen. You'd be kicking, fighting, screaming, punching, giving it all you got to be able to get that oxygen to survive. Well, guys, when you're going through an opiate addiction, your mind is perceiving those drugs just like oxygen or any other vital nutrient that you need to survive. It tricks your brain into thinking that you do these things to survive. And that's why you hear about people doing so many crazy things when they're addicted. I mean, that addiction is so strong, and it fools the mind into thinking that it needs it to survive. And then you do a bunch of crazy shit in order to continue using drugs. And then the whole conversation goes, well, is it his fault, or is it a disease, or his brain? I don't want to get into that. But what I just want to voice is how strong addiction is, especially when it comes to opiates. You hear about it all the time now with the opioid pandemic going on and fentanyl. People are overdosing all the time. It's like, well, why don't they just stop? Well, they can't stop. I mean, their body, their mind literally believes that it needs it to survive, and they can't go on without it. It's crazy, guys. So anyways, I'm gonna get on with my story. If you remember in the last episode, I talked about this pharmacy owner had called my dad, who's a pharmacist. They've never spoke before, never got introduced to each other. But the owner of the pharmacy wanted to, let my dad know what was going on. And in the meantime, my dad had done a bunch of research. He found out about some treatment centers, some detox centers down in his area, which is about 3 hours away. And so I was talking to my dad, and, by this time, there's really nothing to hide. And I told him, I said, yeah, I want to get help. I don't know what to do. And he goes, you need to go to a detox center. And I said, okay. And when I did my research on how long opiate detox lasts, the withdrawal symptoms, I think everything I found online was like 5 or 6 days. And then you'll start feeling a lot better. And I was like, okay, I've only got to make it like 5 or 6 days. So that was my plan. Make it 5 or 6 days. I'm home free. Before that, I couldn't go for more than like half a day, like 12 hours, maybe like more like 8 hours before the withdrawal symptoms started kicking in. I had to keep using. So that was my idea. 5 or 6 days, go to detox, and I'm gonna be all better. I'm gonna be healed. I'm gonna come home. So I still had medications left over, like any good addict. I had my stash at home. I wasn't completely out, and took some, probably a little bit less than I normally did, which isn't saying much. It's still a lot. And then I start driving down to detox. When I got pretty close to being there, I think I was having some withdrawal symptoms, so I took some more. I actually got in a car accident, a minor fender bender. I rear-ended somebody and pulled over to the side of the road. They actually called the police to like report the accident. The police came. I wasn't like terribly messed up. It's not like I was like suspicion for DUI, at least not in their eyes. They didn't look. The cop was just like, hey, don't call me next time unless somebody gets hurt. And so the guys, the other party and me, we just kind of dealt with it, and I exchanged my insurance information and headed back on to the treatment center. I remember calling the treatment center and said, hey, I know I said I'm going to be there at this time, but now I'm going to be here at this time because I just got in a car accident, but I'll be right there. And they were probably just thinking like, holy shit, like, oh my God, this is the industry we work in, right? So I get down there, this is in San Francisco Bay Area. I get checked in, and they go through all my belongings. They take off all my clothes. They give me, something comfy to wear. Kind of like what I'm wearing today. I figured it was appropriate talking about my detox trip to wear a nice comfy hoodie. And I remember I had my some benzos. I don't know if I had opiates, but some Ambien, some benzos, some things I used to help me through my withdrawal with me, like in my belongings. Like I brought them there. And of course, they go through all your stuff. I mean, they're like looking like underneath your shoes, or looking like in the holes in your sweatshirt where your string goes, because addicts, they get really creative and they can hide things anywhere. So he's going through my stuff and he takes my pills, and I'm like, dude, those are mine. Like, you can't take those. And I remember the guy just laughed. He's like, you really think you can have these? He goes like, dude, like I work in a detox clinic. I know exactly what these are. He's like, you can't have these. They're not even like prescribed to you. He goes, we need to take these. And I was like, whatever. So I don't know what I was thinking. I do know what I was thinking. I was thinking that I'm going through opiate withdrawal and I need like all the help I can get, even if that includes like other narcotics to help me ease the pain. I want them. But they said no. Another thing I should mention, at this facility, it was pretty much quitting you cold turkey. So they didn't do the MAT treatment, no Suboxone, no methadone, no benzodiazepines, no controlled substances at all. So we were prescribed, I can't remember all of them, but it was like gabapentin, like low dose, like baclofen, I think, hydroxyzine. It's like trying to put out a forest fire with a water hose, or probably even more like a little squirt gun, in my opinion. I don't think it really did anything. So anyways, one other part I'm going to mention too, not really related to my story, but shortly after I checked in, somebody else checked in. He was a little bit younger than me, looked very much like me, and I was just kind of standing there like, I can't really do anything besides sit here and detox and walk around the floor a little bit. And they were checking him in. And I remember they asked him, they're like, what's your drug of choice? And he looked like a super innocent, like young little kid. And I remember he said heroin. And of course, being the judgmental addict I was like, oh man, like that guy's really messed up if he's shooting heroin. Like I'm not that bad. Interesting story is I didn't make it through treatment, which I'm going to talk about. And I ended up having a difficult journey because of my addiction after this. He actually got clean after that and has been sober for like, probably like over 10 years now. So, two reasons I want to mention that. One, people hear about heroin and things like that. They think it's really, really bad, and it is, but you don't think how bad that the prescription opiates are, right? It's like a prescription, people take them all the time when they get hurt. But when you're taking a lot of them for an extended period of times, it can be, I'm going to say this, worse than heroin when you compare my treatment route versus this other gentleman's. So anyways, moving on. So when you're in detox, you basically lay in a hospital bed and walk around, don't do much. You're just waiting for this to get out of your system. You go down to the cafeteria, you get your breakfast, you get your lunch and your dinner, typical hospital foods. But you're really just waiting for your body to detoxify from all this poison that you've been putting in your body. And, I didn't have a journal during this time. Of course, I'm not trying to write all this stuff down. It's the last thing I want to do. But the first day wasn't so bad because there was still a good amount in my system. Day 2, day 3, day 4, it started to get a little worse. But again, I'm thinking, I read 5 or 6 days and detox is going to be better. And I remember my insurance had paid up for 5 days in detox. Then they were going to remove me. Well, day 5, I was hurting so bad that they had to call my insurance company and get like an extra day extension. I think they wanted to get more, but they only to get only able to get an extra day. So, after 6 days in detox, I think I'm about to go home, be done with my treatment, and one of the coordinators, the scheduler, comes in and she goes, "Now we're going to go over your treatment plan." I'm like, well, my treatment plan was like detox, then go home. She started laughing. She was like, no, 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 no. She goes, you're going to be here a minimum of 30 days. And guys, this was in October. I remember it was right before Halloween because they had the pumpkins and the ghost and all that shit up there that was like really annoying me at the time for being in my state of mind. And I remember thinking this. I said, no, I can't be here for 30 days because that means I won't get out until after Thanksgiving. And I really want to be with my family for Thanksgiving. I mention that because I think addicts, especially when they're going through withdrawal, they rationalize things. They make excuses for why they need to, leave treatment or why they need to use drugs. And for me, it was like, well, I need to be with my family for Thanksgiving because I've been doing that for years and that's what I want to do. I can't be here in a hospital, even though that would have been what was best for me. So 6 days after detox, they basically said your insurance isn't paying for you to be here anymore, but you're going to enter our residential program where you continue this treatment. You continue going to the doctor. You live at this house that has nurses, drug counselors, and you come back to the hospital and you go to meetings and do a variety of things like that while you continue to detox and get treatment. And guys, and this is day 6, and I'm feeling maybe worse than I ever have. I just want to go home. I just want it to stop. So anyways, I get involved in the residential treatment program. And, I was worrying about so much stuff at this point in my life. I remember thinking like, who is going to check my mail at home? Like my mailbox is probably overflowing. I need to get home and check that, all these crazy things. And I remember having this feeling of fear where I was just scared of like life and everything. But I think that goes back to what I said at the beginning. That's like the survival response that your brain has. It's like something is terribly wrong here, and you'll do anything to make those feelings go away. And a big part with withdrawal for me is fear. It's like, I don't know where it's coming from. It's not for any particular thing. It's just this overwhelming sense of fear. And being about 7 days into the residential treatment part of it, so like 6 days in detox and 7 days in residential treatment, I was miserable. I was a mess. I hadn't slept in days. I'm having really bad GI disturbances. If you don't know what opiate withdrawal does to your GI tract, look it up. It's not fun. It's really gross, especially when everybody in the house is like withdrawing from opiates. It's like a shit show. It's disgusting. It's bad. But I remember talking to my dad on the phone, and he's like, "Hey, how are you doing?" And he came and visited me a couple times, which was like really nice of him. Of course, I'm embarrassed. I'm ashamed. Big part of me didn't want to see him, but a big part of me did. I remember talking to him on the phone. He's like, "How's it going?" I said, "I'm miserable." I said, "They're not taking care of me. Feeling like crap. I feel worse than I ever have. I just want to go home. This isn't working. This isn't working how it's supposed to be working, right? According to my mind, my knowledge, my agenda, which was shit." And he said something, and he doesn't know this guy, so don't tell him. It's probably make him feel really bad. He said, "Well, you don't have to be there if you don't want to." And you remember, he's the one who set this up. He's the one who called the detox, told them when I'd be coming down, got it all scheduled, checked the insurance and all that kind of stuff. I don't think he knew how severe opiate addiction is. He never struggled with it. He's a pharmacist for like 30, 40 years. I'm sure he's seen that stuff kind of on the outside, but he's never dealt with it. And nobody knows how bad it actually is unless you're going through it, I think, because it's terrible. One of my friends said it's like hell. He goes, if hell is reality, he goes, that's what it is. It's opiate withdrawal. That's what hell is like. And I would have to agree with him. It's the most miserable thing in the world. in the universe of the spiritual world, whatever you want to call it. And he said that you don't have to be there if you don't want to. And I was shocked. I always listen to my dad too, right? If he would have told me to stay, I would have stayed. But with that was my out. So from there, my mission was to get my stuff and get out of there. So I did that. So the next time we went back to the hospital, where they still held all of our belongings. I can't remember if they had the cell phone there, but the wallet, your car keys, all your stuff. I went to the office and I said, hey, give me my stuff. I'm going home. And I'm there voluntarily, right? Everybody's there voluntarily. They can't force you to stay. You can leave anytime you want. And I knew that. And so I said, give me my stuff. I'm going home. They said, no, you're not. Like, get back to the 12-step meeting and leave us alone. And I'm like, no, you don't understand. I said, give me my stuff. I'm going home. They're like, no, you're not going home. And I used a lot of foul. I was very calm, but I used a lot of foul language, demanded my stuff. And I remember I said, hey, you have 30 seconds to give me my stuff. So I'm going to turn these tables upside down, this counter's upside down. I'm going to throw everything off of your desk if you don't give me my stuff. And I said it in a way, guys, I was so serious and convincing. I probably would have done it. But fortunately, they just looked at me with disappointment and they said, here you go. Gave my stuff, got in my car, and I left. I'm going to end it here for this chapter, but I will say the best thing for me, and you all could have guessed this, was for me to stay. If I would have stayed another 2 weeks, I know I would have been feeling a lot better. I imagine I got through the hardest part. And I think one thing that's so hard about withdrawal is not so much the intensity of the withdrawal, which I think a lot of people, they can go through something intense for a short period of time, but it's the duration of it. It just wears on you and wears on you, and the lack of sleep and the tension and the anxiety and the nerves, and that goes on for days and weeks and sometimes well over a month. It's that duration that kills you, and that's what killed me, and that's what I wasn't expecting. I wasn't prepared for it. In my mind, 6 days I'd be feeling better. So if you or anybody struggling with an addiction problem, keep that in mind, share that information, and say, hey, it's going to take a long time for your neurochemistry in your brain to get back to an equilibrium. So you're feeling good, and be prepared for that, because you're going to be in for the long haul. And I think if I would have went in there with that mindset, like, okay, I'm going to be there for a month, I'm, dedicated to it, I would have stayed there. But like I said, I was planning on 6 days. So to hear a month was like totally out of the question for me. I tried, but I didn't make it. I failed. So anyways, guys, I hope you learned something about the power of addiction, about treatment, what you should do in those situations, what to watch out for, and what not to do. I wish they just would have tied me down and kept me there for 30 days. Because when I left, things got a lot worse. The consequences got a lot worse, as they always do. But if you have any questions, any comments or anything like that, let me know. You can find me at rphally.com over on the peer support channel, or you can find me on LinkedIn. I'm very active there. Feel free to comment publicly on these videos or message me privately, or you can check out my personal website at www.ericjspeck.com. All right, guys, talk to you later.